Hey everybody, it's Robert here again, and in today's video, I'm going to talk a little bit more about using only your laptop in order to get started with DJing. Specifically, we're going to build off of my last video, so if you haven't watched that video already on loading up some of your music into Rekordbox and using the crossfaders and volume faders, be sure to check out that video. And in this video, we're going to focus on the idea of equalization and EQ. Now, I actually have a full tutorial on this idea of what equalization is and what it actually means and how to use it as a DJ that's available on YouTube. I'm going to leave a link in the description of this email as well. But let's just quickly kind of get our hands into this concept and experimenting with it with Rekordbox. So I'm going to come down here to my track selection view, and I'm just going to go to the search bar and I'm going to type in Glitterbox because I really love this label and I want to play a little bit more disco today. And here we've loaded up our track again. And so I'm going to go ahead and hit play to allow it to play back. And I'm just going to forward a little bit into the track. Now, EQ or equalization is basically a way that DJs can control the spectrum of frequencies in a track. So for example, here in the main mixing console, we have these three knobs, low, mid, and high. And these correspond to the frequencies in the track playing back. So the high corresponds to these sort of high level frequencies like the percussion that's, and we can actually manipulate that. We can remove it, for example, by turning counter clockwise, and this will reduce the decibel, the volume of those particular frequencies, or we can expand it. We can also go the other way, which will increase the volume and make it louder for us to hear back. And we can then do the same thing with, for example, the mids. The mids are the kind of vocal, the human elements, the strings, the piano, and we can go ahead and turn counterclockwise to remove those, or we could accentuate it by adding the clockwise direction. And finally, last but not least, we have the bottom bassy, boomy part of dance music, which is our kick drum. And by turning counterclockwise, we can remove those elements from the playback, and then we can also do the same by accentuating using the clockwise direction. So the question now is, why would we ever want to use EQ as a DJ? And really the main objective of using equalization or EQ is to create space. Remember that we can only hear so much volume and so much distinction in terms of the musical sound sonically that's being played back. So we want to be using EQ strategically to remove certain elements when we're making a performance transition into another track. So typically a very common transition is to remove a lot of the bass EQ out of the track that's playing in order to transition into the new track, which has its bass and bottom end kind of playing. So let's go ahead and let's try to demonstrate that quickly here. I'm going to go ahead and play this track, and I'm going to load in another Folomir track here from Glitterbox, great label. I'm going to just hit that beat sync so that everything is synced up just because we're using the laptop. So we'll just try that. And let's go ahead and let's try to make a transition from the first track to the second track using our EQ. So the first thing we'll do is maybe we'll remove some of that low end EQ, and you can hear how some of that space is created. And then we'll make a transition from left to right to the next deck into the next track. And you can hear how the bottom end, the kick drum from the new track, Home Beyond the Clouds, on the second deck is compensating for that lost bass EQ and is basically made up. So we initially created some space with the first track by removing its bottom end, by removing its bass line, its kick drum, and then we compensate for that with the second track's kick drum, its bass line, and a bottom end elements, and then make the transition over. And that's just a very basic way that you can use EQ in order to apply transition. So if you found this video helpful, definitely check out the upcoming video where we go a little bit deeper into some other elements of DJing with just your laptop and just seeing if DJing is something you really find interesting and fun to do.